As the environment turned bitterly cold with the arrival of winter, inside a small hut sat an old man shivering, but the man kept grinding his teeth as if refusing to accept his fate. He muttered that he was someone from a civilized society on Earth. He was an educated man, but, while the old man was reminiscing about his past, a little girl suddenly entered his hut and called out to him. The little girl addressed him as Old Man Seo. While showing the food she had brought, the little girl said her mother had asked her to give this to him. Hearing that, with a weak voice the old man thanked her. His body was truly frail and aged, making him unable to properly welcome the little girl. As she placed the food she brought on the floor near where the old man lay, the little girl said it was fine. She only asked him to get well soon and make them soap again. After that, the little girl then walked away to return to her home under the snow, rain and the cold wind brought by winter. After the little girl left, the old man named Old Man Seo was once again left alone in his small hut. While enduring the torment brought by the cold of winter, he recalled his past. He used to be someone from a civilized society on Earth. 50 years had passed since he arrived in this cursed world. On the exact day before he suddenly came to this world, it was the day when he and his co-workers were heading to their company's workshop. On their way to the workshop with Director Kim and other company employees, they were swept away by a landslide that caused the car they were in to fall into a ravine, and when they regained consciousness, they found themselves in a strange world, a world where there was a nine-tailed fox the size of a house, a two-headed venomous snake with red scales, and strange people who could fly in the sky. When faced with all that, he then realized he had fallen into the immortal Cultivation novel world he sometimes read. But aside from the oddity of this world, his co-workers could life much better than others, all of them, except him. At a time when they were confused about suddenly being in another world, a figure who looked like an immortal descended from the heavens. He was amazed by the mystical abilities his co-workers possessed, and one by one, the immortal took them to the heavens, leaving only him and Director Kim in this world. They were then forced to survive in this foreign land with nothing. Honestly, they had waited a long time, hoping the mystical being would take them too. However, neither of them had unique abilities. In the end, the only way they could survive in this unknown world was by doing odd jobs. 6 months after arriving in this world, Director Kim shouted that he couldn't live like this anymore, and he spent all his money to buy a third-grade martial arts book sold on the streets, and in just 3 months, he mastered the martial arts and became a martial artist. He ended up working for the state and began studying advanced martial arts. Afterward, he became a strong warrior and set off to the martial arts world, leaving him behind alone. After decades of facing a miserable life in this foreign world, he always wondered, could something special happen to me one day? But, when he looked at his wrinkled skin, he realized his waiting was in vain. Nothing happened to him. Even now, after 50 years in this world, he was just an ordinary old man dying of the cold. He certainly didn't want to accept such a fate because he was proud of his identity as someone from a civilized world like Earth. But that changed nothing. He lived in this world alone, accompanied only by despair. He had struggled hard to learn to read and write, but he could barely make a living, and only had the hope of buying this small plot of land to build a house. Though he managed to earn some income, especially when he sold soap he made from alkaline solution. In this world resembling medieval China, soap seemed like a novelty, never seen before. Yet even so, when he thought his life had stabilized with this income source, his customers were taken over by thieves who stole his soap-making method, and they cruelly drove him out of the market. At its peak, here he was now, cast aside by this world, awaiting his own death. He always wondered, what does God want me to do? He had done his best, but he still ended up like this. Though he wasn't the chosen one, even if he wasn't special, he didn't want to accept it when everything was taken from him. He could no longer hold back his tears thinking about that, lamenting the sad fate that befell him during his time in this world. His condition worsened as the cold continued to gnaw at his body. He didn't even have the strength to open his eyes now. In his last moments, he fantasized, if only I had a little ability, if only I had a little chance, and with that, he died. As a pitiful old man ignored by the world, but, when he thought he had died, he suddenly could easily open both his eyes. A clear sky with shining sunlight. That was the first thing he saw when he opened his eyes again. With full confusion, he then looked at his palms and the clothes he wore, which were completely different from before. There were no signs of wrinkles on his palms at all. He wondered, why am I still alive? Isn't this the clothes I usually wore on Earth? But amid his confusion, he then heard someone's voice. Equally confused as he was, his eyes widened in shock when he saw those people, and that was when he realized, He hadn't come to this world without ability, he had awakened his regression ability. This was his first regression, being at the place where he and his co-workers first landed in this world. While gazing at Director Kim, who was now confused, he then recalled what had happened. It was clear this was the first day when they fell into this world. They were then inside an SUV, on their way to the workshop, but struck by a landslide. If he recalled it again, there was a flash of light when they were swept by the landslide. His memory was a bit hazy because it had been 50 years. While he was thinking about that, someone suddenly called him, but he ignored the call because it sounded so unfamiliar to his ears. He kept pondering about his regression ability. He wondered how he should live his life now as a regressor. Normally, in regression novels, people lived comfortably by using their future knowledge, but all he did was make Soap angry. Because Seo ignored his call, the person who called him then walked toward him and strongly grabbed his shoulder while shouting directly into his ear. Seeing that person, he politely apologized and said he was just a bit lost in thought, but, as if not accepting his apology, the person suddenly slapped his face hard. His co-workers were shocked seeing that. While looking down at Seo, who fell to the ground, he then called him a damn bastard. He was angry because he was daydreaming while driving on the mountain journey. They could all have died because of him. Hearing that, the confused expression on Seo's face then disappeared as if he had gained enlightenment. He hadn't heard that call for a long time, so he didn't even realize he was being spoken to. With an annoyed face, he then asked Seo if he wanted to be fired when they returned to the company. When Seo looked at that person's face, he then recognized him. He was the section chief John Myung-hoon. In his view, he was a jerk. He was the nephew of John Myung-cheol, the executive director of the company where he worked. He was a lucky guy who became section chief through nepotism at the age of 32. Seeing their argument, one of the co-workers named Chief O then tried to mediate. He told John Myung-hoon that was enough. It wasn't like Deputy Manager Seo could do anything to avoid the landslide, but that didn't calm John Myung-hoon's anger. He asked if he wasn't the least bit angry. All this chaos happened because this bastard drove while daydreaming. Hearing that, Seo didn't deny it. He thought to himself that what John Myung-hoon said was true. He was indeed daydreaming while driving, but the reason he could daydream was because he dumped his work on him. That made him unable to sleep due to overtime. And if you think about it, wasn't it him, John Myung-hoon, who was supposed to drive today? Seeing John Myung-hoon still angry at him because he felt the reason they were stranded here was because of him. Memories from 50 years ago began to become clear in his mind. At that time, he was restless and unconsciously apologized to him, and also thought he made a mistake. For the next 50 years, he always lived apologizing to others, even when a strong bandit group attacked and robbed all his money, even when martial artists treated him cruelly, and even when local officials took everything from him in the name of tax payment. After holding it in for so long, he realized something. He did have to endure those he couldn't fight, but, he then stood up again and called John Myung-hoon. He said he understood he was angry at him, but they shouldn't blame each other in a situation like this. But, his words only fueled John Myung-hoon's emotions more. He then couldn't control his emotions anymore and ended up hitting him again. He angrily asked if he wanted to fight him or what, but Seo's expression didn't change at all after receiving the punch. He realized he didn't need to kneel to those he could fight, so, he then didn't stay quiet and punched John Myung-hoon's face back. They were shocked by this sudden change in Seo's boldness in hitting John Myung-hoon, but Seo didn't consider this a big deal. He couldn't count how many times he was beaten by martial artists in his previous life. While continuing to beat John Myung-hoon, Seo then recalled the suffering and humiliation he had endured back then. In his previous life, he was beaten by bandits while gathering herbal medicine in the mountains. He was beaten by thieves while starving, and he was beaten again by officials for refusing to pay taxes. Amid the cries of pain and disbelieving stares from his co-workers, Seo kept recalling the bitter memories of his 50 years in this world. Through all the senseless violence, he learned something John Myung-hoon and the others didn't know. It was violence. When you strike someone's eyes, their fear increases. And when they've been beaten enough, naturally they will say something. And just as Seo predicted, after receiving several punches from him, John Myung-hoon then apologized. Seo realized he had a mystical ability even coveted by immortals. This wasn't a great martial art that could make his name resound across the world, but it was an ability that allowed him to hold his own destiny. Seeing John Myung-hoon groaning in pain while holding his head, Director Kim then called Seo and scolded him. How could you do something like this to your co-worker? Hearing that, Seo didn't argue and admitted his mistake. he apologized for letting his anger get the better of him and shocking them all. While bowing to them, Seo apologized to them once again. He admitted that he was the reason they were all in this situation. Seo didn't mind bowing to them to ask for forgiveness, because in his mind he wouldn't meet them again until he died. Hearing his apology, Director Kim's demeanor softened a bit. He felt that John Myung-hoon was indeed a bit rough, so it wasn't wrong for him to get emotional. Even so, his reaction was too excessive. He then told him to apologize to John Myung-hoon. Hearing that, Seo said he understood, though he wouldn't meet them again. That was a different story when it came to Director Kim. As a fellow left-behind companion, he would keep meeting Director Kim, so he wanted to maintain a good relationship with him. Director Kim would become one of the strongest martial artists when he started learning martial arts. If he offered the support he could give to Director Kim in this life, he was sure he would reap sweet rewards, meaning he would get his good side. After thinking about that, Seo then approached John Myung-hoon and extended his hand to him. He apologized to him and said his reaction earlier was truly excessive, but John Myung-hoon's anger wouldn't subside so easily with just an apology. But when he looked at Seo's calm face, his anger suddenly faded as he remembered the brutal act Seo had done to him earlier. After both agreed to make peace, Director Kim then thought about how they could get out of their current situation. He suggested they leave the forest first and look for a village. Hearing that, Seo thought, logically, that was indeed the first thing to do in a situation like this, but unfortunately, logic didn't apply in this world. While looking at Director Kim, who was searching for a way out, Seo then recalled the knowledge he had gained over 50 years in this world. In this place, immortals desperately sought immortality, and the only law in this world was the survival of the fittest, the law of the jungle. People from this world, the Murim world, would fight with their swords for wealth and honor. Meanwhile, the name of the forest they were in now was Ascension Path. There were no villages, cities, or countries around here, so their search was doomed to be futile. He then told Director Kim that the sun would soon set and suggested they look for or make a sheltered area in a safe spot. Hearing that, Director Kim felt his suggestion made sense, but he suddenly remembered the car they were in before arriving here. There were many supplies they brought for the workshop in the car's trunk. Hearing that, Seo inwardly regretted that they would never find the car, but he didn't intend to tell them that, because he knew they wouldn't believe his words. He would let them search for the car rather than waste his energy convincing them. After thinking about that, Seo then suggested they split into two groups, one group to find a safe area, and the other to look for the car. They would regroup at this point before nightfall. Time passed and night finally arrived. Fortunately, they managed to find a suitable place to stay before nightfall. They lit a campfire there to keep warm, and while they were eating the food found by Seo, one of the female co-workers confusedly said she didn't understand at all. They fell while inside the car, so how could they be here without the car? Hearing that, Director Kim was just as confused as she was. The event that befell them now truly baffled him, and when their discussion hit a dead end, one of the female co-workers who was enjoying the food found by Seo deliciously said it felt like chestnuts. Hearing that, Seo asked, "It's crunchy, right?" He told them to eat as much as they wanted. He still had plenty of supplies. Director Kim laughed happily hearing that. He was grateful to have Seo here, though they were in a tough situation. They could still laugh thanks to him. He was indeed a reliable person just like at the company. He praised him for being so diligent. While glancing at John Myung-hoon who was lying in the corner, Director Kim cleared his throat. If he wasn't mistaken, he was sure Seo was driving while exhausted because he had a lot of work yesterday. Hearing that, one of the female co-workers confirmed his statement. She agreed that Seo was truly diligent. The other female co-worker felt the same. They felt like they were camping thanks to the cave he found. Hearing that, Seo humbly said he was just lucky. Hearing his humility, they asked him to just accept the praise he received. Seo was of course lying. He found the cave not by luck. In his previous life, they found the cave after getting lost in the forest for hours. With a slight smile, Seo planned to just enjoy this moment for now, because tonight would be the last time they could laugh like this. After finishing their food and as the night grew late, they all then slept in the cave while awaiting the morning. The next morning, while the others had just woken up from their sleep, Seo, with a fearful yet respectful face, knelt before the Lord of the Forest. Seeing Seo kneeling, the Lord of the Forest, a giant fox, sniffed a unique scent from him. He had lived for decades, but he had never smelled a human scent like this. Hearing the commotion coming from outside the cave, the others, still groggy from just waking up, then came out and asked him what was going on. But their sleepiness instantly vanished when they saw the giant fox in front of them. They were utterly shocked and terrified seeing such a creature. Seeing them, Seo anxiously told them to kneel and show their respect to the Lord of the Forest. Seeing their arrival and the shocked expressions on their faces, the giant fox then said, "Every time I meet humans, I always remember how foolish and rude you humans are. Usually I would tear humans like you apart. But because one of you knows how to treat me, I will spare you." As he said, "You must pay for entering my territory. As long as one of you offers one of your hands, I will allow you to stay here." They felt horrified hearing that condition. Sacrificing a hand was unimaginable for someone from a peaceful society like them. As for Seo himself, he couldn't think of a better way out than this. In his previous life, they angered him by panicking like madmen, and ended up dying with their legs and hands eaten. But it seemed this fox appreciated the attitude he showed now. He only asked for a hand and not their entire bodies like in his previous life. Seeing them frozen in fear, while licking his lips, the giant rocks then asked, "So, who will offer their hand?" Hearing that, Seo felt this wasn't a bad deal. Just one hand, that's all they needed to sacrifice, and this wasn't something to worry about. Because even for a severed hand, it could be healed by a cultivator who would appear in 2 days. Besides, since he had prepared for the giant fox's arrival, he had prepared medicinal herbs to reduce the pain. After thinking about that, Seo then extended his hand to the giant fox and offered it as a sacrifice. They were shocked by his willingness. While opening his mouth wide, the giant fox felt he truly knew manners. In return, he would try his best not to cause pain. But, though the giant fox said that, when his hand was truly severed by the fox's bite, Seo felt an excruciating pain that made him scream in agony. The fox's words weren't an empty threat. He really bit and tore his hand off. As for his co-workers, they couldn't bear to watch. They closed their eyes because they couldn't witness the brutality. Amid the pain he now felt, Seo then panicked and grabbed the herbal plant he had prepared, quickly eating it. Though he had mentally prepared himself, the pain he endured was so intense it was unbearable. After eating Seo's hand, the giant fox felt a bit disappointed because he thought it would taste different due to his unique scent, but turns out it tasted the same as other humans, maybe even worse because of the filth flowing in his veins. Hearing that, Seo humbly apologized to him for his less tasty offering. Seo could now calm down a bit thanks to the herbal plant that helped ease his pain. After finishing his business with them, the giant fox then planned to leave. He said he would allow them to stay in his territory for 7 days and they wouldn't die, thanks to his divinity. After saying that, the giant fox then left, leaving Seo and the others shocked by the heavy impact left by his leap. After the terrifying monster finally left, they then quickly ran to Seo and worriedly called out to him. Seo didn't act spoiled and asked them to go back into the cave first. He would explain what happened. Upon reaching the cave, Seo then took a sitting position and told them about the incident. He admitted he met the fox when he left the cave at dawn. The fox told him they were now in the Murim world. They were shocked hearing that news. As if still in disbelief, Director Kim then asked him again, "You mean we're now in the Murim world?" Director Kim could only laugh hollowly when faced with that fact. This was truly something he couldn't even imagine. Seo confirmed it, but they were at least safe for a week because he had sacrificed his hand. Hearing that, Director Kim then caught a key point. He confusedly asked him, "What about the week?" After that, with labored breaths due to his wound, Seo answered that they would need to offer another sacrifice. They were shocked and horrified hearing that news. Amid their still shocked hearts, Seo then said he felt sleepy and wanted to rest for a bit. He hoped they understood. When night fell, under the moonlight that seemed like eyes gazing at the earth, while Seo was still resting in the cave, he then heard a commotion outside the cave. It was the sound of his co-workers discussing the sacrifice he mentioned earlier. But, the discussion seemed to go poorly because John Myung-hoon suggested something unethical. As Seo continued listening to their discussion, or more accurately their argument, he could conclude that John Myung-hoon suggested the others sacrifice his other hand to the fox. They certainly didn't agree with his suggestion, but John Myung-hoon didn't give up so easily. Faced with their disagreement, he then asked, "So, who will offer their hand and leg next week?" Though they didn't want to sacrifice their own limbs, they also didn't want to sacrifice Seo again, because they felt Seo was useful. He was the one who provided them with a safe area and food. Hearing that, John Myung-hoon then tried to convince them again. He said they could learn as much as possible from him within this week. Since he had lost one hand, he felt his life wouldn't last much longer. Therefore, they should make him a scapegoat. But, what John Myung-hoon and the others didn't realize was, While they were busy discussing the sacrifice, Seo, with a dark gaze, was watching them from inside the cave. Based on their conversation, Seo concluded that since he was already disabled, John Myung-hoon planned to cut parts of his body to use as offerings every week. This fact truly enraged him. It was absolutely unpleasant. After picking up a nearby rock, Seo then turned his gaze back to John Myung-hoon. His heart was burning with anger at that moment, even making him consider killing John Myung-hoon. With the violence he had learned from the oppression he endured for 50 years, he could kill someone from the modern world like John Myung-hoon with one hand. Seeing John Myung-hoon persistently convincing the others to sacrifice him as an offering to the Lord of the Forest, Seo thought, should I kill him? But, after thinking it over, he dismissed the idea. It wasn't a wise move. Fear muddled everyone's thinking. If he acted too harshly now, it might affect his relationship with Director Kim. But, when Seo returned to the cave and was about to rest again, he then heard a voice calling John Myung-hoon and telling him to shut up unless he wanted his leg broken. Seo smiled faintly, glad that someone still cared about him. He felt they were good people. It was just that this situation confused everyone. Time passed, and the tense night finally ended. The next morning, when the sky turned clear, as they exited the cave where they had rested, they encountered another monster. But unlike the fox that ate his hand, the two-headed snake only demanded a small amount of blood as an offering. It was the snake that sucked Chief O's blood when he lost all his limbs in his previous life. Hearing that the snake only wanted a little blood, Chief O took the initiative to let the snake suck his blood as an offering. Unlike his previous life, Chief O offered his hand himself this time. But, when the snake barely tasted his blood, it spat it back out, nearly vomiting. This was the most vile human blood it had ever drunk. Though it was a good thing, Chief O felt annoyed and humiliated by the snake's words. Seo wasn't surprised by the snake's reaction. After all, it was the blood of a 21st century worker tainted with nicotine and cholesterol. Obviously it wouldn't taste good. After thinking about that, he then called John Myung-hoon and asked him to help gather medicinal plants. John Myung-hoon felt shocked and annoyed hearing his call. He was upset because Seo addressed him by his full name. Seo ignored his childish behavior and directly asked him, "Aren't you hungry?" Hearing that, John Myung-hoon answered that he was hungry. As he walked toward him, Seo then told him to follow him. He would tell him about edible fruits and plants. John Myung-hoon was shocked and delighted hearing that. After approaching him, Seo then whispered to him that he also planned to give his other hand to the fox next week. So, there needed to be someone who knew how to survive in this forest in case he died. His words certainly shocked John Myung-hoon. With a somewhat chaotic mind due to the shock he received, he then thanked him. Seo smiled faintly hearing his thanks, because he knew the fox wouldn't return, and John Myung-hoon would never get the chance to take advantage of this. Time passed, and the sun gradually rose high in the sky. During their fruit and plant gathering session, Seo shouted and scolded John Myung-hoon, "How many times do I have to tell you that's not the fruit?" Focus. Faced with his anger, John Myung-hoon could only apologize. Seo then told him that fruit would kill him. John Myung-hoon fell silent hearing that. After that, Seo kept instructing John Myung-hoon to pick the fruits and plants he mentioned. He even told him to dig into the ground. After doing that activity non-stop, John Myung-hoon finally complained and asked him to stop for a moment. He said he needed a break. He had been digging continuously to get all these plants. Seo seemed to do this intentionally as a form of revenge against John Myung-hoon. This was how John Myung-hoon punished him when he was new at the company. Hearing his complaint, Seo refused. He told him they had to finish this before dusk and urged him to hurry. After an unknown amount of time passed, after digging continuously in the spot Seo pointed to, John Myung-hoon was shocked when he found a whole ginseng there. With full astonishment, he asked if this was natural ginseng. He was truly amazed by its large size. Seo answered yes. His reaction remained flat despite finding a rare plant, because he knew, though it looked like ginseng, it was actually a yellow bamboo root. Perhaps because Ascension Path was filled with energy, the yellow bamboo root, which should be small, could grow that big here. It wasn't very useful for cultivators, but it was a valuable material for martial artists to enhance their ki. It should help Director Kim. After thinking about that, Seo then told John Myung-hoon there were two more over there. John Myung-hoon felt very excited hearing that, but he hesitantly asked if it was okay to pull out so much natural ginseng. Seo answered it was fine. He then told him to take off his shirt and put the yellow bamboo root in it. As the sky gradually turned yellow signaling evening, Seo thought it was time to head back. He then asked John Myung-hoon to return now, but shortly after night fell and they gathered at the cave where they rested, something shocking happened. A loud explosion erupted above the cave where they were. Right after the explosion, 3 of them suddenly groaned and screamed in pain. They felt confused seeing that because they didn't feel anything, but it didn't stop there. Their confusion and shock grew when they saw 3 men flying above them, staring at them. One of the 3 men wearing golden clothes was quite surprised to see them, but not with the same kind of surprise. He was shocked because he didn't expect to find talented people in a place like this. Hearing the praising tone of that man, the man in black clothes told the man in golden clothes named Buko to back off. He claimed they were his. Hearing his claim, the last man in blue clothes then turned to the man named Hyangwak and called him pathetic. Seeing the 3 men chatting and ignoring them, Director Kim then confusedly asked who they were, but the 3 men didn't care about his question. Their eyes were only on the 3 who felt pain, because only they had spiritual roots. The rest were just ordinary humans. After that, without explaining anything, the man named Buko suddenly created an electric energy ball in his hand, and threw it at John Myung-hoon. John Myung-hoon roared in pain after receiving such an attack. Director Kim worriedly called out to him seeing that. He was truly shocked by Buko's sudden action. Buko did that not to kill him, he only wanted to test him. He was very pleased to learn that John Myung-hoon had a heavenly golden thunder body. After Buko's test ended, Hyangwak then took his zither and stepped forward to test one of them. And when he played the zither, Kong Min-hee, who had been covering her ears, suddenly showed an extraordinary reaction and screamed in pain. Hyangwak laughed happily seeing that, because he knew it indicated she had a ghostly yin transforming immortal root. A very rare body. He himself didn't expect something like this to exist. After the tests on the 2 ended, the last man then descended to the ground, and approached Chief O. After placing his hand on his shoulder, the man laughed joyfully because he discovered he had a unique divine body. He didn't expect to find a body like this, while Chief O himself was very confused and didn't understand what the man did or said, but unfortunately the man didn't explain anything to him. With a wide smile on his face, he said he would take them 3 as disciples of the Azure Heaven Creation sect. They had the talent to change the world. With a slightly sharp tone, he then asked for their opinion on that. Chief O could only stand frozen at that moment. His body was so stiff he struggled to even breathe. It felt like he would die if he refused the man's offer, but, hearing the man's offer, Hyangwak then approached him and invited him to join the Black Ghost Valley instead. He told him they had all cultivation methods. The man felt annoyed seeing Hyangwak trying to steal his target. Ignoring the man's reaction, Hyangwak continued to convince Chief O. He promised him immortality, the power to overturn the heavens, fame, and wealth. He swore he would get all that in 100 years. Seeing their argument, Buko didn't want to lose. He then approached Chief O and told him the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect was the best place for him. Seeing the 3 men vying for John Myung-hoon, Kong Min-hee, and Chief O, Director Kim then mustered the courage to ask if they could help them get out of the forest. They could die if it continued like this. His question seemed to stop their bickering. Buko then took some kind of jar, and sucked John Myung-hoon's body into it. He also told Director Kim and the others not to worry. He didn't know how they could enter Ascension Path with such weak bodies. Not only Buko took John Myung-hoon, the others also took the remaining 2. The man who took Chief O then noticed Seo's condition with only 1 arm. He realized it was because of the fox. Judging from his wound, he felt Seo had willingly offered his hand, though he was just a mortal. He praised him for his bravery. After that, he then healed his wound and regrew his arm. Seo immediately thanked him for his help. After finishing their business, the 3 then flew upward while carrying the 3 co-workers with spiritual roots, and right before they left, the man carrying Chief O told them they had taken care of all the beasts and monsters in Ascension Path on their way. Here, this place would be safe for the next 10 years. Seeing them about to leave, Director Kim anxiously asked them to wait a moment. He wanted to ask for directions because they didn't even know which way to go, but unfortunately the 3 men ignored his plea. The 3 co-workers they took also didn't respond because they had lost consciousness when Director Kim called them. Seo couldn't do anything at that moment. This event was exactly like 50 years ago. No matter how loudly they shouted, the 3 men ignored them as if they were mere insects. But what relieved him was that they at least healed his severed arm. But, as they were confused about what to do in this forest, they were shocked when they saw numerous lights shining like comets in the sky above them. Director Kim wondered if something was over there. The next day, in bad weather with heavy rain accompanied by continuous lightning strikes. Inside the cave where they rested, Deputy Manager Oh Seo, who was previously perfectly healthy, was now lying weakly on the ground as if suffering from a serious illness, coughing so hard that blood came out. Kim Yun was very worried about her condition. She then told Seo that Deputy Manager Oh's condition was very bad. She asked if there were any medicinal plants to heal her. She was truly at a loss about what to do. Hearing her concern, Seo only told her to wait a moment. He informed them that someone would come and heal her. They were shocked and confused by his words. Shortly after, they suddenly heard the sound of footsteps, and the silhouette of a tall man appeared in their view. The man was surprised to see a mortal in ascension path. It was like an ant suffering amid the rivalry of dragons. Seeing the man's appearance, Director Kim asked him in shock who he was. The man smiled faintly hearing his question. He then introduced himself. I am the Sea Dragon King, Seo Eunhyun. Seo Eunhyun then explained why he came here. He told them that Oh Seo could control storms. They were shocked hearing that. Seo Eunhyun wasn't exaggerating. A storm suddenly appeared out of nowhere, so he came to find its cause. He then pointed at Oh Seo and said the young lady lying there must be using sorcery of the storm, but he was puzzled because he sensed she was just an ordinary mortal with no trace of cultivation at all, so how could she possess such immense power? Especially without realizing it, Seo Eunhyun felt this was truly strange. Seeing his confusion, Seo then told him that they were also confused here. They hadn't been in this place long, but suddenly powerful people like him appeared. Yesterday was the same, even taking their companions away, but Seo Eunhyun suddenly burst into laughter hearing his story. Based on what he said, he concluded that there were highly talented people among his companions. And suddenly cultivators appeared and took them as if everything was planned, and now he suddenly showed up, in front of this young lady. Seo confirmed it. Hearing his confirmation, Seo Eunhyun then asked if he even knew where they were. He explained, this place is known as Ascension Path, or also Path of Ascension. This is the main gate that leads someone to the upper realm. In just a few months, a dimensional rift called the Ascension Gate will open around here. It happens once every 1,000 years. Many high-level cultivators and spiritual beings have already gathered in Ascension Path to try ascending to the upper realm, so, isn't it not strange that cultivators like me appear near you? Hearing that, Seo responded as if he understood. While Director Kim still had many questions at that moment, he clearly remembered that those people, the ones who took his companions, said they would bring them to their sects, if they intended to ascend to the upper realm. How could his companions join them? Seo Eunhyun sighed briefly hearing his question. He felt it would be hard for mortals like them to understand this. While pulling out some kind of drink jar, he explained to them that there was a technique among cultivators to shrink and enlarge things to store them in containers like this. They stored their entire sects in objects like this. Their goal was to reach the upper realm with their whole sect when the Ascension Gate opened. Even he had put one of the underwater castles from his Sea Dragon clan in here, with about 1,800 sea dragons inside. They were shocked hearing that. Even Seo, who had lived in this world for decades, felt the same. After telling them that, Seo Eunhyun then checked Oh Seo's condition. He found it truly strange and interesting. He also felt she could become a great figure if she joined the Sea Dragon clan. Hearing that, Director Kim anxiously ran toward them intending to stop him, but the weight of his body suddenly increased, making him unable to run anymore. He couldn't even stand at that moment. It didn't stop there. Director Kim then felt an overwhelming pressure bearing down on him. His eyes bulged sharply, nearly popping out as he endured the pressure. While carrying Oh Seo, Seo Eunhyun told them he would give her his blood and accept her as one of his clan. It was the best option for them all. He also gave them one piece of advice: don't casually ask questions to high-level cultivators. Right after that, the pressure on them increased. Director Kim's body bled from it. Seo wasn't spared from the pressure either. As he walked away, Seo Eunhyun told them he answered their questions because he was generous, but almost all cultivators would kill them for asking questions. After saying that, amid the ongoing storm outside, Seo Eunhyun then returned to his true form as a sea dragon, and left while carrying the unconscious Oh Seo. Some time after Oh Seo was taken, the heavy rain and storm battering the forest where they were suddenly disappeared, and the sky cleared at that moment. With a blank and lonely gaze, Kim Yun then looked at the sky. She didn't expect her companions to be kidnapped one by one. She was truly baffled by the situation she faced now. A few days ago a landslide appeared out of nowhere while they were driving, then immortals and a dragon kidnapped her companions, she could only laugh bitterly facing all that. Hearing her muttering, Seo then walked toward her to calm her. Feeling Seo's hand on her shoulder, Kim Yun then called him and begged him not to be taken too. If he were taken like them, she wouldn't survive in this forest alone. Hearing her heartfelt plea, Seo then smiled to reassure her, but unfortunately, he knew their time was also up. Shortly after, Kim Yun suddenly felt a pressure bearing down on her. Her head buzzed with pain, making her unable to sit still. She painfully told them something was approaching. Director Kim was confused seeing her condition. He then panicked and ran toward her, asking what was wrong. At that moment, the birds perched in the trees suddenly flew away from that area as if startled by something. Kim Yun tremblingly said it was here, and while Director Kim was confused about what she meant, an old man riding a lion-shaped demonic mecha suddenly appeared before them. The old man was shocked to see mortals in a place like this. He wondered how mortals like them could be an ascension path, but, after a brief analysis, he then figured it out. When the ascension gate was about to open, the space around the area became unstable. It seemed they were trapped in a spatial storm. The old man laughed proudly at his analysis and praised himself as a genius. After that, the old man then slowly flew toward them, and asked who had just emitted such a massive consciousness. It was truly a powerful presence. He thought a sage from the upper realm had descended to this world. After saying that, he then looked at Kim Yun and wondered if it could be her. Seeing the old man approaching, Director Kim panicked and asked who he was. He also warned him that she was his companion. But, the old man ignored his words, and right after that, Director Kim was suddenly pushed back when the old man looked at him. Seeing that, Seo then anxiously ran toward Director Kim. Fortunately, though the throw was quite strong, Seo reacted quickly and managed to catch Director Kim's body, preventing him from suffering any injuries. But, seeing Seo beneath him, Director Kim then worriedly called him. Seeing Seo's back severely injured from abrasions, he anxiously asked if he was okay. Seo weakly answered that he was fine. Meanwhile, ignoring their situation, the old man then walked toward Kim Yun. While holding her face, he told her he would take her. Though she didn't have a spiritual root, he could awaken it with his power. He was curious about the result if her strange consciousness was combined with a divine cultivator's consciousness. Kim Yun could only cry hearing that. Besides that, she was also very worried about Seo and Director Kim's condition. Hearing her muttering, the old man then looked at them both. He didn't expect Kim Yun to still hold on to worldly feelings, even after he offered her to join him. Right after that, Seo and Director Kim's bodies suddenly lifted high. Their necks seemed to be choked by something at that moment. It was the old man's doing. He felt Kim Yun's connection with them was unnecessary, so he would sever it with his own hands. Kim Yun panicked and worried seeing that. She then begged the old man to stop. She promised to do anything and pleaded with him to spare them. Hearing her promise, the old man then told her to forget all her worldly ties, and asked if she understood. With a sad tone, Kim Yun answered that she did. Hearing her answer, the old man then released them both, letting them fall to the ground. But he realized that if he left them here, her worldly feelings would remain, so he would send them to a mortal country nearby. They'd be randomly scattered through a dimensional rift. Even he didn't know where they would land. As the old man extended his hand, a portal then appeared behind them both, and right after the portal opened, they were suddenly sucked into it like a vacuum cleaner. Seo could only curse facing that, and just as he was about to be sucked into the portal, he quickly grabbed the medicinal plants he had collected. Kim Yun, witnessing the scene, hysterically called out to them both, while the old man, the mastermind behind all this, only laughed watching the scene. After an unknown amount of time, as Seo gradually regained consciousness, he then heard the noisy sounds like those in a market. A confused expression appeared when he first opened his eyes. With a still dizzy head, he then tried to stand up. Seeing the bustling market-like scene before him, he wondered where this was. In his previous life, he didn't land in a place like this, and as Seo walked while observing the surroundings, the people there threw him confused yet condescending looks. But Seo didn't care about that. He was more concerned with his current situation. He just realized the immortal wasn't lying. They indeed landed randomly, but for some reason, he felt this path was familiar, and after observing for a moment, he then realized this was a place he had once lived. Amid the strange stares from those around him, Seo then focused his gaze on the towering pagoda in front of him. After observing the environment where he landed for a moment, Seo then returned to the spot where he had passed out, and coincidentally, Director Kim had regained consciousness by then. With a sad face, Director Kim told him he couldn't understand what was happening now. Hearing that, Seo answered that he felt the same. Director Kim was truly very confused at that moment. He even wished all this was just a dream, but he knew everything that happened was real. Now only the two of them remained. Director Kim sighed briefly. He then said, "I guess I should be relieved that we weren't taken by those monsters." Seo agreed with his words, but he himself didn't know if this was good or not. Even though he had regressed in his previous life, he was truly a nobody. After reflecting on his fate for a moment, Seo then told Director Kim that they couldn't stay idle here forever. He then invited him to look around first. After pondering for a moment, Director Kim accepted his invitation. The place they landed was in a crowded city with ancient-style buildings standing above it. The clothes worn by the locals also didn't resemble those of modern society, but rather like those of ancient China. As they walked around observing the surroundings, Director Kim then noticed something. They were speaking a language he didn't know that sounded like Mandarin. He was also confused why they were whispering while staring at them both. Hearing that, Seo told him they were saying their clothes looked ridiculous. Director Kim was shocked hearing that. While smiling reassuringly at him, Seo told him not to worry. He knew a bit of Mandarin. When Seo turned to him, Director Kim was somewhat surprised seeing the condition of his back. Hesitantly, he then replied that was good. Seo was actually lying to him. They weren't speaking Mandarin. The language they used was completely different from Mandarin, though the writing was the same. In his previous life, he had to endure the insults from beggars for 2 months just to learn the basics of their language. Fortunately, he didn't have to go through that again. This time, after that, Seo then invited Director Kim to buy new clothes. Director Kim was confused hearing that, because he realized the people here wouldn't accept their money, but that was no issue for Seo, who had lived in this world for 50 years. He then took Director Kim to a medicine hall. There, he opened a cloth containing the medicinal plants he had picked. The medicine hall owner looked very shocked seeing those plants. He didn't expect they would let him buy such valuable herbs. Seeing his reaction, Seo confidently said the yellow bamboo root was at least 800 years old. The medicine hall owner knew that too. He didn't want to cheat him. He said it was worth at least 15 silver ingots. Seo was very excited and happy hearing that. He had never held that much money in his previous life, but he pretended to stay calm. After clearing his throat briefly, he then urged the medicine hall owner to hurry. The owner understood. After getting initial funds, they then went around the city to buy clothing and housing. Seeing the house in front of him, Director Kim asked in surprise if they would live in this house. Seo confirmed it. He also felt happy seeing the house. He then told Director Kim that from now on, he would teach him the language used in this place. Director Kim laughed happily hearing that. He then thanked him, but he felt confused seeing Seo's odd demeanor. Though Seo acted as if there was no problem at all, after bribing someone to get an identity token and buying land and the house, they only had 1 silver left. He suspected this city was the capital, so everything would be expensive. As Seo was troubled thinking about that, Director Kim fell silent, worried when he saw bloodstains on his back. He then suggested something to him. "Since we're in a completely different place, why don't you just call me by my name?" Hearing his suggestion, Seo agreed. Hearing his agreement, Director Kim thanked him, then started calling him by his name, Seo Eunhyun. Time passed. After night fell, they then rested in the house they had just bought. Since this world was a civilization with undeveloped technology, they lit a candle to illuminate the room they were in. While showing the remaining medicinal plants to Director Kim, Seo explained that the reason they could get money was because he sold those medicinal plants. They wouldn't have enough income if the plants ran out, so they had to find a way to earn money. Hearing that, Director Kim pondered for a moment while thinking of a solution. He then suggested, "What if we used the silver we got from selling the medicinal plants to start a business?" Seo thought the same. With all the money they earned from selling the plants, plus Director Kim's skills as a director of a mid-tier company, they should still have hope to make money. And since he had regressed, he also thought it wouldn't hurt to aim for bigger dreams. Director Kim, or full name Kim Young-hoon, was a martial arts genius. After reading a third-tier martial arts manual from the market, he became a Mura master in just a few months, and when he started learning higher-level martial arts, he became the strongest martial artist in Jianghu. This made Seo think, what if he learned top-tier martial arts from the start? By doing that, he might accelerate the rise of the best swordsman in Jianghu, at least in less than 30 years. That way, he would gain many benefits while working for him. After thinking about that, Seo then called him and told him this world was the Muram world, the world of martial arts. Kim Young-hoon was quite shocked hearing that. Seo continued, "We don't know when Jianhu people will come to disrupt our business, so shouldn't we at least learn to defend ourselves?" Kim Young-hoon looked excited hearing that, but his excitement faded because he realized it would be hard for them to learn, since martial artists wouldn't teach martial arts to those outside their sect, but that wasn't a problem for Seo. He was more focused on Kim Young-hoon's enthusiastic tone earlier. He knew Kim Young-hoon was considered a Murim novel enthusiast, so it was natural for him to be interested in this. After that, Seo then introduced the famous sects in the city. There were 7 renowned sects in this city, among them, the demon-slaying sect, self-binding temple, suppressing bird manor, and 7 mysteries sect were orthodox sects in Jianghu, while the Wolf Gang, Dark Knight Association, and Dragon Fighting Fortress were considered unorthodox sects. People called them the 4 Stars and 3 Devils. The demon-slaying sect specialized in blade and sword techniques. The self-binding temple was a Buddhist sect, while suppressing bird manor was like a house sect. They handled intelligence. The 7 mysteries sect had a long history. They studied various martial arts, but unfortunately, there wasn't much information about the 3 Devils. Rumors said they excelled in stealth techniques and black magic, engaging in many illegal activities. After explaining that, Seo then asked him which sect he thought was the best. Hearing his question, Kim Young-hoon bluntly said, "Of course the demon-slaying sect." He felt a martial artist should use a sword, and a man should learn sword techniques. Seo wasn't surprised by his answer. He was indeed called the best swordsman in his previous life, but Kim Young-hoon then confusedly asked him how he knew all this. Hearing his question, Seo casually answered that he overheard martial artists talking. After 3 months since they landed in the city, they then went to the demon-slaying sect's location, but when they reached the entrance gate, they were stopped by the guards. The guard asked them what business they had here. Seo then pointed at Kim Young-hoon and said he was his brother. They had heard how famous the demon-slaying sect was, so they came to learn martial arts. Hearing his explanation, the guard then looked at Kim Young-hoon. He felt they seemed to have a lot of money. Kim Young-hoon felt a bit scared by his stare. The guard then apologized and explained that learning martial arts at his age was very difficult. Seo had already predicted that response. While handing him a silver coin, he then asked if he could escort them to speak with the sect elder. They only needed skills for self-defense. His plan worked, and they were successfully brought into the sect. When they met the sect elder then asked them for confirmation. "So, you want to learn martial arts for self-defense?" Seo confirmed it, and if possible, the best martial arts. He then handed over luxury items placed in a suitcase and begged for it. What Seo gave was so much that it tempted the sect elder. He then said he could become an outer disciple, but he explained to them that the sect didn't give special treatment to those who joined through donations, and they could only accept one of them. Seo was shocked hearing that. All the wealth he handed over was equivalent to 1 yellow bamboo root, yet they only offered this meager service. Kim Young-hoon also looked very annoyed by that, but he was surprised when he heard Seo thanking the sect elder. Seo said his brother would be the one to learn. After everything was decided, the sect elder then planned to leave. He told them to head straight to where all the outer disciples gathered. After the sect elder left, Kim Young-hoon hesitantly called Seo. He asked what was the point if only he learned martial arts. He felt a bit regretful. He would have chosen a different sect if he knew it would cost this much. Hearing that, Seo told him not to overthink it. Besides, it didn't mean he was talented in any sport. He could run the business with the remaining money and support him. He told him to just focus on learning martial arts. Kim Young-hoon was deeply touched and thankful hearing that. He then promised to do his best, but when he looked at his own chubby body, he doubted if he could do it properly. Hearing that, Seo told him not to be self-deprecating. He was sure he could do it. Encouraged by his words, Kim Young-hoon thanked him. Time passed quickly. 7 months had passed since Kim Young-hoon joined the demon-slaying sect. Inside the sect, a competition among disciples was now being held, but something highly unexpected happened during the competition. The sect leader was greatly shocked and didn't anticipate the result. A disciple with no background actually managed to defeat all the disciples he had trained. That disciple was, of course, Kim Young-hoon. For martial artists, martial arts is defined as understanding the true meaning of martial arts itself and physically attuning to it. A martial artist is considered a third-rate martial artist when they can grasp the meaning of their martial arts, and to become a second-rate martial artist, they need to deepen that understanding. To reach even higher levels, they need more than double the amount of understanding compared to before. Achieving that naturally requires equivalent time and effort. but sometimes, people with enough talent seem to laugh at typical levels of understanding, skipping multiple ranks at once. The demon-slaying sect is a sect filled with talented martial artists, a great sect from the city of Seo Eunhyun. However, a highly shocking event was currently unfolding within the sect. An outer disciple had managed to defeat all the direct disciples of this great sect. In just 7 months, Kim Young-hoon became a first-rate martial artist who mastered the absolute dragon sword technique of the demon-slaying sect. The sect leader was utterly shocked by this fact. Becoming a first-rate martial artist in just 7 months after learning martial arts was unimaginable. The first-rate level is a stage only attainable with the collaborative efforts of many skilled martial artists. Moreover, he was just an outsider learning from their sect. In the eyes of others, this looked like their tradition bowing to one person. After that, the sect leader immediately ordered his sect members to capture Kim Young-hoon. After Kim Young-hoon was successfully captured, they locked him in a building and guarded him tightly, and unfortunately, Seo was also captured by them and imprisoned with Kim Young-hoon in that building. After a brief observation, Seo concluded that the sect was in chaos because an outsider had gained abilities equal to the sect elders in just 7 months. In this absurd situation, Kim Young-hoon was locked in his room, suspected of being a spy from another sect, but what puzzled him was why he was also considered a spy despite not learning martial arts at all. He was captured while shopping at the market. Seeing Kim Young-hoon continuously practicing with his sword, he then asked if he wasn't worried. Kim Young-hoon just laughed at that and asked back, about what? While glancing at the silhouette of the guard at the room's entrance, Seo continued, about them suspecting us as spies. In Muram novels, they usually destroy your dantian or even sever your key flow. Hearing his guess, Kim Young-hoon confirmed it, but for some reason, he felt this was his new wall, and if he could break through this wall, he would reach the next height. Seo was shocked hearing that. He felt Kim Young-hoon was truly a monster. It hadn't been long since he became a first-rate martial artist, yet he was already aiming for the next level. What awaited? After first-rate was the martial peak, the realm of great sect leaders and elders. In Yenghua, they were known as absolute Muram masters, and there were only 1,000 martial peaks across the entire country. The Muram world never discussed the realm beyond martial peak, so essentially, martial peak was the final realm achievable through learning martial arts. Based on that, Seo then realized his estimation had been wrong. If the situation was like this, then the emergence of the world's best swordsman might happen 40 years earlier than 30 years. 7 days after they were imprisoned, while Kim Young-hoon was meditating, 3 lotus petals appeared around him. After finishing his meditation session for the day, Kim Young-hoon then exhaled. Seo was shocked seeing those 3 lotus petals. They were key flowers that only appeared for martial artists who reached the martial peak realm, and 3 lotus flowers appeared around him. With the breakthrough aura still lingering, Kim Young-hoon slowly stood up. He told Seo that he had broken through the wall. He was now no longer afraid of the demon-slaying sect leader. Seo exclaimed in awe hearing that. His talent truly exceeded his expectations. Kim Young-hoon himself was also surprised. He didn't expect to have such talent. Maybe this was why he always loved Muram novels since childhood. But, right after Kim Young-hoon broke through to the martial peak realm, the door to the room they were in was suddenly burst open, and several people entered. They were demon-slaying sect disciples. They said they had received orders from the sect leader to destroy the dantian of the spy who dared to steal the demon-slaying sect's martial arts. Hearing that, Kim Young-hoon showed no sign of fear when faced with their encirclement, but it was different for Seo. He immediately raised his hands when he saw them all drawing their swords. He explained to them that they weren't spies, but, before Seo could give a further explanation, a demon-slaying sect disciple suddenly punched his face and told him to shut up. He didn't trust him because he had heard them speaking an unknown language. After that, he then ordered the other disciples to restrain them, but, before their action could even take place, Kim Young-hoon then drew his sword, and freed it into the hand of the sect disciple who had punched Seo's face. His slash was so fast that the disciple couldn't react. Until finally, only his cries of pain were heard. Kim Young-hoon slashed precisely at the disciple's palm, making him unable to hold his sword anymore. Facing all this, Kim Young-hoon could only sigh in regret, especially since this was his first sect. Seeing the event, a guard disciple became furious and immediately swung his sword at him, but, his slash was too slow for Kim Young-hoon. His hand was already severed by him even before the sword strike could land. Not only that, when the other disciples finally reacted and attacked Kim Young-hoon together, he could easily finish them all. The might of a martial peak was truly shown here, but fortunately Kim Young-hoon had no intention of killing them, he only targeted their palms to prevent them from fighting in the near future. After Kim Young-hoon successfully defeated all the disciples surrounding him, they then fled in a panic. They could only curse. Based on the fight, they realized Kim Young-hoon had become a martial peak. They planned to inform the sect leader about this. Seeing that, Kim Young-hoon then told Seo that he planned to visit another sect to learn. He then asked him what about him. Seo said he would accompany him. He then suggested, how about we go to an unorthodox sect, the Dragon Fighting Fortress. Kim Young-hoon agreed with his suggestion. He then asked him to go ahead. They would meet there. He wanted to end the pursuit by the demon-slaying sect leader and elders first. Time passed. After Seo undertook a very long journey, he finally reached a mountain peak. That was where the Dragon Fighting Fortress sect was located. There, he then saw Kim Young-hoon already waiting for him. Seeing Seo's arrival, Kim Young-hoon jokingly asked him why he took so long. Seo could only laugh bitterly at his question. He then answered that he was the one too fast. Seo's journey seemed far from easy. It was exhausting to travel such a long distance and climb such a high mountain with his mortal body. And as Seo gradually reached the peak, he then saw the sword Kim Young-hoon used was stained with blood. Seeing that made Seo feel a sense of irony. Back then he was still scolding him for the violence he committed, even if it was for survival. This world truly changed them into something different. This made him miss his hometown. He even wished it would be better if they could return, not to this Miram world, but to everyday life on Earth. If he had known he would regress, he would have hoped to be sent back to Earth. But Seo knew the past should remain the past. They were trapped in this world now, so they had to do what they could here. After arriving at the Dragon Fighting Fortress sect headquarters, their story didn't end there. After being betrayed by the demon-slaying sect, Kim Young-hoon took over the Dragon Fighting Fortress. 2 years later, he traveled across Yenhua to defeat many sects, and in the 3rd year, he finally succeeded in destroying the nameplates of all sects. He became known as the greatest martial artist under heaven, and he used his fame to unite the sects and form a Miram alliance. 7 years later, Kim Young-hoon and Seo had become like brothers, ignoring their age gap, and he created a martial art suited for him. Kim Young-hoon named this martial art the Severing Mountain Sword. He named it that because he hoped whoever learned this martial art could split a mountain. If he could master the Severing Mountain Sword, he believed he could reach the martial peak realm. When Seo read the martial arts manual Kim Young-hoon created for him, he then realized this martial art was more than that. It even included the Dragon Vein Key method. This was a first-tier martial art truly different from second- or third-tier martial arts. But, the problem was, even when personally trained by the greatest martial artist, he still struggled to learn it. Kim Young-hoon even thought he truly had no talent. Seo could only feel frustrated about that. He didn't expect his talent to be so poor. Even though the greatest martial artist under heaven created a martial art for him and taught him directly, he couldn't even reach the 3rd rate after a full year. He couldn't do anything about it, but at least he had a talent for medicine. Kim Young-hoon agreed with that. Everyone had their own talents. Time passed quickly. A day after 10 years, inside Kim Young-hoon's meditation room, he witnessed it, a realm only heard of in legends. 5 energies converged to the origin. When Kim Young-hoon finally broke through, his body suddenly reacted intensely. His muscles seemed to contract, causing his bones to click. It didn't stop there. His skin, which had aged, suddenly showed signs of rejuvenation, and at its peak, his body now looked like that of a 20-year-old with fully black hair without a trace of gray and tight skin. Seo was shocked seeing that. He almost couldn't recognize him. Hesitantly, he then called Kim Young-hoon. Kim Young-hoon laughed joyfully after his breakthrough succeeded. He then jokingly asked Seo, "What has you so surprised?" Eunhyun, what was happening to Kim Young-hoon now was a rare phenomenon, namely bone reconstruction. Seo, in shock, told him that he looked younger than him now. Kim Young-hoon just laughed hearing that. He didn't know if what Seo said was true or not since he hadn't seen a mirror, but he felt his body was filled with energy now. Seo chuckled hearing that. He was sure the world would be shocked seeing his transformation. Kim Young-hoon thought the same. Setting that aside, he felt it was time for him to pass the position of Miram Alliance leader to the next in line. Hearing that, Seo hesitantly said he was sure no one was suitable according to his standards. A Miram Alliance leader needed a martial arts level far above other martial artists. Unfortunately, no one truly understood the meaning of martial arts, but Seo also knew that was because Kim Young-hoon's understanding and talent were beyond reason. It was impossible to find someone as brilliant as him in this world. Hearing that, Kim Young-hoon agreed with him. But, while looking out the window at the disciples practicing martial arts, he said that at least there were still some talented individuals. After that event, time passed quickly, and years went by unnoticed. It had now been 35 years since Seo arrived in the Murim world, and he was in his 60s now. He didn't know what Kim Young-hoon was doing or how he was faring. A year after breaking through to the five energies converged to the origin realm, he immediately handed over the Murim Alliance leadership to his successor. Seo had also wanted to retire with him back then, but to maintain the Murim Alliance, he had to serve as an alliance advisor for longer. Kim Young-hoon had said he wanted to explore the wider Murim world beyond Yenghua, even missing his retirement ceremony. After finishing his daily activities, Seo walked out of his residence, feeling lonely. He had bought this residence with his pension funds, but the problem was it was too big for him to live in alone. But, as he was thinking about that, he was startled when he heard the sound of someone landing heavily in his courtyard. Confused, he asked, "Who's there?" But, as he approached the person, he was shocked because it turned out to be Kim Young-hoon. Seeing his condition, Seo asked worriedly and confusedly, "What happened to make you look so disheveled?" He also asked where he had been that he didn't attend his retirement ceremony. Kim Young-hoon didn't answer his questions and wearily lay his body on the ground. Seeing that, Seo wondered if something had happened. Kim Young-hoon then called him and said that he initially thought he was truly talented in martial arts. Seo was confused by his words, because to him, Kim Young-hoon was indeed talented. He didn't know what else to call him if not a gifted genius. Kim Young-hoon understood what he meant. He was a genius in martial arts. Perhaps in Yenghua or even among ordinary people like him, no one could match his martial arts talent. Seo was speechless hearing Kim Young-hoon call himself ordinary. That was far from his perception of Kim Young-hoon. No one in this world didn't know he was the strongest martial artist. But, before Seo could finish his sentence, Kim Young-hoon then told him he had fought an immortal cultivator. He also asked Seo if he still remembered, 35 years ago, the bastards who suddenly appeared, kidnapped their companions, and flew off, leaving them behind. Seo could only fall silent hearing that. His words brought back old memories. Immortal cultivators rarely appeared in the world, but they moved discreetly using the Yenghua Palace as an intermediary. Of course, the Yenghua Palace itself was controlled by them. After he and Kim Young-hoon established the Murim Alliance and expanded their influence in Yenghua, they began interfering in their affairs. Kim Young-hoon didn't like them, but opposing them was like fighting the entire Yenghua. So there was no choice but to submit to them to protect the Murim Alliance. That was also why Kim Young-hoon stepped down as Murim Alliance leader and began wandering as a mortal martial artist to oppose them. He dared to challenge the immortal cultivators in Yenghua. Kim Young-hoon then recounted, "Finding the immortal cultivators' whereabouts was incredibly difficult. Even when I finally found them and tried to fight, they immediately dismissed me, saying fighting an ant was a waste of time. After saying that, they would fly away or cast illusions on me, but I finally got a chance to fight an immortal cultivator 5 years ago." Hearing that, Seo quickly asked if he won. Kim Young-hoon confirmed it. He won, but his face still showed frustration. Seo, unaware of that, then said, "If you had achieved that while still leading the Murim Alliance, you would have caused me a lot of trouble." But Kim Young-hoon didn't care about that. With a frustrated and reluctant expression, he continued his story. "When I fought an immortal cultivator who had reached a certain realm, I couldn't even injure him at all." That news was highly shocking to Seo. He regarded Kim Young-hoon as the strongest, so that was unimaginable to him. Kim Young-hoon continued, "He even provoked me, saying I'd be considered the winner if I could scratch him." Hearing that, Seo asked in shock if the cultivator he was talking about was one of the 10 great immortals or something. Kim Young-hoon immediately dismissed his guess. That person said his land was still the second lowest realm in the cultivation world. In the context of the Murim world, he was still a second-rate martial artist. That was certainly shocking to Seo. He found it hard to believe. From his first life to this one, he knew immortal cultivators were truly powerful, but Kim Young-hoon's martial arts prowess was unmatched under heaven. He could float in the air while using his martial arts, even slicing a building like soft tofu. So he was shocked to hear that a genius like him could only make a small scratch on one finger of a low-tier cultivator. Kim Young-hoon said frustratedly that he was just a frog in a well. He even felt it was impossible for mortals like them to fight immortal cultivators. They were moving disasters. Seo could only remain silent, not knowing how to respond to that. After telling him that, Kim Young-hoon then took something from under his clothes. It was a severed hand. He said he had managed to cut off one of the immortal cultivator's hands. Seo was delighted hearing that. he felt his martial arts had surpassed that immortal cultivator, but Kim Young-hoon quickly dismissed his assumption, because the cultivator immediately regrew his hand right after it was cut using a talisman. Kim Young-hoon felt somewhat desperate now. He felt the path of martial arts had ended here. Seo could only feel shocked and confused hearing that. Kim Young-hoon then told him he came to say a farewell. That person said he truly admired his determination, so he would accept him into his sect. Kim Young-hoon could only laugh bitterly, recalling that, perhaps he would become a junior again there. Hearing that, Seo hesitantly said that becoming a cultivator meant striving to become immortal, but as far as he knew, that couldn't be achieved with a body without a spiritual root. Kim Young-hoon knew that. But that person said a mortal who could reach the 5 energies converged to the origin realm was equivalent to a cultivator born with a 5-element spiritual root. That was a talent a cultivator had from birth. Perhaps a mortal like him would need an extremely long time to match that, but at least he got this chance. After telling him that, Kim Young-hoon then tore open space behind him, and stepped inside. He bid farewell to him, to reach a higher realm. Right before leaving, he then handed him a scroll. He said it was his last gift for him and asked him to take care of himself. Seeing Kim Young-hoon suddenly disappear, Seo repeatedly called his name, but unfortunately, he got no response. Realizing his actions were futile, Seo then focused his gaze on the scroll Kim Young-hoon had given him. It turned out to be a martial arts manual, record of transcendence martial arts, meaning martial arts learned to surpass cultivators. After examining the martial arts manual given by Kim Young-hoon, Seo then sighed. He didn't expect Kim Young-hoon to leave him like this, especially since they had once been like brothers. After that event, time passed quickly. On the same day as in his previous life, Seo lay on his bed enduring the pain rising from within his body. He felt his life was truly pitiful. 50 years had passed since he arrived in the Murim world, and once again, he would die of a fever like in his first life. Seo clearly felt a sense of fate in this. Mortals couldn't escape their destiny, no matter how hard they tried. Only the environment they lived in changed, but in the end, he also died on the same day as before. He lived an exhausting life with lots of work to avoid overthinking his first life, working so much that he never married. What he could be grateful for was that he at least achieved something by maintaining the Murim alliance in Yenghua, earning him wealth and honor unimaginable in the mortal world. But his regret in this life was that he didn't fight harder. Seo wondered, if I had fought harder, would Young-hoon and I have been able to reach heaven together? Seo couldn't hold back his tears thinking about that. He truly blamed his powerlessness. Even after regressing, in this second chance, he still left behind a regret. But what Seo didn't know was that this was only the beginning of his second regression.